Good evening, I'm Anthony. I'm the salon manager here at Mazzella & Palmer in central London. Welcome to Hairbrained Live. Tonight JB is going to be taking you through a haircut, so I'm actually just going to introduce you to the shop. So if you would like to follow me, come through. So this is our salon. We're also a salon academy. So during the week we are just a normal sort of salon where we have
very busy salon where it always brings for clients. Hi guys, this is JB from Mazzella & Palmer. Thrilled to be with you at, for the first live that we're doing with Hairbrained. So first of all, I'd like to introduce you to my fantastic model. Her name is Lily.
Hi guys.
So with Lily's hair, what I'm going to do for you today is I'm thinking of doing a little bit of a, I would say a salon technique, something that's quite easy for you to instruct in your salon day-to-day basis. And here what we've got is we've got a very young, beautiful girl with quite medium to thick hair, and the idea is going to be to create a little bit of lightness, a little bit of softness into the hair. So I'm working primarily here with two sections. I have a section towards the top, and I've got a section towards the crown. So one section is more rectangular, and one section is more with a triangle. So what I'm going to create here is a section towards the top. Both of them is going to be disconnected from the rest, which is going to be longer. And then the internal section here is going to be much shorter to flatten the head shape. So I'm going to start straight away here for my technique. So the idea here is going to be to create a technique that is more towards layering. Layering technique is actually removing a lot of the weight. I'm going to go back a little bit later to the whole education system that we're doing here at Mazzella & Palmer. Before I'm going to start cutting, I'm going to explain to you a little bit who we are. Mazzella & Palmer is a hair international education company. We travel the world in around 60 countries to teach the reason why behind technique. So, what I'm doing here is I'm starting the haircut just on the ear area. So why the ear area and not the back or the front? Very simply because, as you see here, this is where you've got the least amount of hair. So by having the least amount of hair here, as I'm going to remove the weight, I can also control the weight that I'm going to create. So let's talk a little bit about elevation. So what I'm going to create here is I'm going to lift the hair out. So Tamas, if you want to go just on the front of me here so the guys can see the elevation. So at Mazzella & Palmer, what we do in terms of education system, everything has to be as simple as it can. So what we are doing here is to create a lightness effect on the hair. We're going to lift the hair higher. So the higher I lift the hair, the lighter I'm going to be. Now you can see here, shorter internally, and I'm keeping longer externally. So hair works like domino. So as you can see here, when I'm going to start pulling the hair down, the shorter hair is going to start to push the hair into a space. So it's kind of almost interlocking. So when I'm going to bring the hair down, this allows me to keep the length and remove the weight internally. So from the first part, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move forward and then I'm going to move back. So why am I working with the front first? Very simply because as I'm getting towards the front here, the hairline is slightly weaker. So I might need to use a little bit of over direction in terms of creating a little bit more of length compensation. But first of all, I'm going to take my section again, because working with the cleanest section as possible, it's very important for me to achieve the best final result. Oh, first section here. Now, second section. I'm going to grab the hair down. I'm working straight away, vertically towards the front. I only need two sections each time, the guide and the following section. If you want to work the most neatly as possible, we can use sectioning clips. That's absolutely fine. I can do a sectioning clips on the front here, at the back here, and here on the front. In here, I can see very clearly what I'm doing. Now, I'm going to work on the base. So on the base, meaning that every single section is going to be pulled straight out. Why do I do this? very simply to be able to follow the head shape. Okay? If I work with an over direction, meaning retracting or retrieving the hair back towards myself, it would mean by over directing, I leave a little bit more length and weight towards the front. But here, as I'm going to have the upper section falling over the shorter area, I don't need to do that at this moment in time. So I'm going to take the hair and I'm going to pull straight out of the section. Now, not just how to cut hair, but why. This is the ethos of Mazzella & Palmer. So everything that we're doing have to have a very, very specific meaning. So here, first of all, why do I work outside my fingers and not inside my fingers? Very simply because if you look at the elbow position, my elbow position has to be able to lift where I'm working. So if I've got and work inside my fingers, I'm very much not in control about lifting my elbow. But if I work outside my fingers, my elbow slightly naturally rise, and it's much easier for me to control a higher elevation. So what we say is when we work with layering technique, we work outside our fingers to be able to lift the hair higher and remove the weight. So straight away, I'm going to control, lift the hair. See, I'm placing myself behind my model, and then I'm cutting. Now that I have two sections done, I'm going to bring the hair down, and I'm always checking how the hair is going. You see here, it falls really, really well. Now, as I'm moving towards my third section, I do not need the original guide. So section number 1, I'm going to put it all the way back. More you keep the first section, more you're going to be tempted to over-direct the hair back. So here it's very important to only keep two sections.
Can I ask you a question, JB?
Yes, of course you can.
Okay, so this is from Pooja. Are bob hairstyles a good idea when you have thin hair?
Do you know what? This is very, very interesting. Actually, it's a very good question. Is it Claudia?
Pooja.
Pooja. So yeah, very good question. I mean, bob, we call it a line. So line, as you can see here on the actual diagram, we actually have 3 different types of lines. Line can be round, can be square, and can be triangular. But most primarily what a line do, all the length falls into the same length. So whether it's round, square, or triangle, every hair falls down to the same lines, to the same guide. So that means that it's going to build weight. So for fine hair, it's one of the best techniques to use, definitely. Here, the idea of what I'm doing on Lily's hair is slightly different. It's instead of creating a very strong, sharp line and layering later, I want to keep the old kind of line or bob shape that she has, and I want to add some movement to it. This is why I'm creating this very soft kind of layering technique internally. Thank you very much for your question. Yeah, guys, please feel free to ask as many questions as you want. The guys are here to talk to me as soon as there is a good question. There's no problem. Now, second part. Once I'm moving towards the front, I have to be very aware here of my body position. As I'm working into a round shape, I'm going to have to, one, stay at the back of my model, but as I'm moving forward, my body needs to move forward as well. So this is very, very important. This is working really, really well. I'm going to go towards, I'm going to say almost my final section towards the front, but I'm always very, very aware of making the shape as clean as it can be in terms of tidiness of the way that I work. If I'm being a little bit too fast and if I'm not clean enough, that will definitely impact the final result. So always working with a lot of water to keep a nice tension on the hair and a constant moisture. We're very lucky at Mazzella & Palmer. We use this amazing water spray. It has a very, very soft type of feel here, so it's very good if you do not want to actually have the makeup of your client falling and dripping all over their face, you know what I mean? That happens a lot in the salon. But then also, it gives this really, really help in terms of keeping the moisture in the hair. So I'm going to carry on. You see my body position slightly moved now towards the front. So one thing that I have not talked about is the way that I'm cutting the hair. What we do here, when you use precision cutting, we need to have the cleanest of the shape. So in here what I'm doing is I'm utilizing only the points of the scissors. I'm going to talk about the scissors a little bit later because those one are mighty special, as I could say, because they are a unique pair in the world. But what I'm doing is I cut and I retract. This is a very good way to be able to keep, you know, all my shape really, really neat. So I'm cutting the hair and I'm retracting my blade. Now I'm getting towards my last section here. So once again, I only need 2 sections at a time. The guide and the section where I'm going. My body position slightly moved towards the front. I'm utilizing here the fine side of the comb. I can talk about the comb as well because this is our own comb, it's our own design. And I'm working with the fine side to create the most tension as possible. Now bring the hair down. And I've just completed the first part of my technique. So as I complete the first part of my technique, what I need to do now is to cross-check the hair. Cross-checking meaning is the verification of my technique. They call it cross-check as it's like making a cross. So if I've cut vertically, I will cross-check automatically horizontally. So I'm going to bring the hair towards this way, bring the hair down. If I need more water straight away, I use more water. And then from here now, I'm going to move the hair into an opposite direction. I bring the hair up, and from here, just very, very, very lightly, just snipping the hair if it needs to be. Now, when we cross-check, it's never more than a few millimeters. It's very, very important.
Just a question, are you cutting at 180 degrees?
Well, one more time. I don't know if gentleman or lady who asked that question.
It was Diana.
Diana.
Sorry, it was
Aaron.
Aaron, perfect. Thank you, Aaron, for your question. Now, what we do with Mazel & Parmer is we do not talk about angles, we do not talk about degrees when it relates to elevation. The reason why, it's very simple. It's because if I start talking about degrees, it can become very, very difficult. But what we know is the higher I lift the hair, the lighter the shape will become. The lower I lift the hair, the heavier it will be. So we judge the elevation from the amount of hair that the client have. And in here, I've got medium to thick hair. This is why I'm utilizing quite a high elevation here on Lily's hair to create a lot lighter, okay? So if the hair would have been less heavy, I could go that way. But here I'm going totally all the way up, like matching the ceiling to create something quite nice, something quite flat. But if I wanted to have much shorter internally and much longer externally, what I could have done is this. So go shorter towards longer. But here I'm just following flat. Now that I've done the front, I'm going to move towards the back. This is actually a technique that can be very, very quick when it gets to the salon area. You know, you quickly put your section, and then after you do your elevation, remove the amount of length, and then you can even cut the length of it at the end. You don't have to cut the length first. Now I know that a lot of hairdressers around the world always seem to start their haircuts by judging to the length and then starting the internal shape, such as layering or graduation. In here it's slightly different. The idea is I want to keep a very, very soft shape. So if I want to have a shape that's slightly stronger, I start with my perimeter first and then I do my internal shape. Here it's slightly different. I'm actually working towards a shape that's going to be very soft, even externally. So I'm starting straight away by my technique.
JB, we have actually 2 questions. So the first one is from Amanda.
Perfect.
And she's asking about how she can find out about the classes with us.
For the classes with us,
Yeah.
this is a very good question, Amanda. Thank you very much. Actually, we've been very fortunate. What we have done for the last 7 years since we started Mazel & Parmer it's that we've been traveling heavily across the world. But it's been only now since December 2017 that we have this amazing space. There's half academy and half salon. Now also in the US, we collaborate with an amazing gentleman called Adam Federico, and then we're doing a lot of courses over there. So either you can contact directly Adam Federico to do education with us in his amazing academy that he has in Sacramento, or you can contact info@mazellanparma.com, and then you will get a lovely young lady called Julia. She's the global chief for the bookings in terms of courses and international, and then she will let you know everything in terms of fees and then when is the courses.
And we also have another question from Pooja, which is it normal to see the scalp under the hair when the hair is short?
Rephrase, please.
Is it normal to see the scalp under the hair
Yes.
when the hair is short?
I don't get the question, sorry. Is it normal to see the scalp?
Yes.
Oh, you mean that if you cut a shorter hair, if you see the scalp through? I think I get it, okay. Well, do you know what? This is entirely up to your consultation. Now, if the actual hair is very fine, and then by removing too much weight or cutting too short, you see the scalp through, I personally wouldn't do it. I think for me what's very important, when the client leaves the door, she represents our brands, she represents our salon, she represents our way of working, she represents everything about us. So if it's going to be too weak, and if it's not going to work, I go bit by bit, you know. So don't go too short straight away. If it's not working, or if you think it's too, if it's too see-through from the scalp, next time you definitely have to keep the hair a little bit longer. I hope that makes sense. So now I'm moving towards the back and nothing is changing. I still have my section as clean as it can. I'm utilizing my clips. I bring the hair up. And you see, definitely working with that fine side of the comb. A lot of tension here. Bring the hair up. I can see exactly where the guide is, and then I'm going to follow exactly my guide. Now we're very, very lucky at Mazellan Parma. We're starting a beautiful relationship with Mizutani. Mizutani is probably one of the best brands in the world. Absolutely incredible scissors. And they just came up with this one. It's one of their swords, and basically it's a unique piece. So it's a brand new screw that they've done specifically for us. It's a brand new shape because the sword usually, I think it's mostly offsets. For us, what's very important on a pair of scissors, it has to be straight. We don't do a popping screw because some of the technique that we do on the line, we cut sometime under the comb, so it's very important so it's flat so it doesn't catch, you know, and then we do it straight in a 5.5 to 5 inch blade because it's very easy to manipulate. So for us, the simpler, the better. And I'm moving towards the back. So I know in the US it's around 1 to 3 p.m. I guess in the afternoon. So do we have a few viewers? I know a lot of people are going to watch after work tonight. But
Yeah, changing between, well, it's pretty cheap. Quickly changing between 250 and 300.
nice, very nice. Up, and I carry on towards back. So what's very important also is the head position of my client or my model. It has to be straight here. As I'm bringing the hair all up, you don't really want to have any movement of your model, otherwise you might change your shape. And again, I'm working from the front, from the internal to the external. I'm going to get towards the final one here. So you might ask me a question and ask, why did I do a triangle section towards the back? Now, why is the section triangular at the back? Very simply because Lily's hairline or internal shape, she has a bit of a cow's lick here. The crown is very, very jumpy. So as I'm actually sectioning the crown down, that little triangle section is going to allow me to keep more length, and the length will allow a little bit more weight and length construction to be able to control the difficulty of the hairline. Because very often, if you get very short, something that's has a lot of texture, it's going to do like a little pineapple. So here for me, it's very, very important that I'm actually sectioning the hair to allow a little bit more length. And again, I'm going to get towards the final part here. See, very, very important, a lot of tension. A lot of tension. Now, this is half of my haircut, so before I get to the next part, I need again to do some verification. So I'm going to come towards the side, the guy's going to move with the camera, and then again, one more time, horizontal section.
JB, we have a question from John.
Please.
Will you do a rounded layer in that triangle section?
On the top?
Yes.
Do you know what, John? Thank you. Good question. You can do pretty much whatever you want. This is here. What I'm going to do is, because it's very jumpy. I'm going to actually bring it up, and then I'm going to do a little bit of over direction. The over direction here is going to help me to keep a little bit more length, and it's just a bit of a safety for me in terms of the length here. So I'm gonna actually work with a little bit of over direction, so I don't have any bad surprise afterwards. Nice tension. I can see exactly where my guide is. Always working a lot with the point of my scissors, you know, the bottom part here needs to be a little bit more cut that way. So you see here, really I'm working with the point. Now, first section is done. So I'm going to put a little bit of water. Using water is really helping me to see how the hair is falling. And I'm going to repeat the exact same procedure on the other side. What's going to be difficult though is how do I manage to have the balance. But there is a lot of tips and tricks that we can use for that.
JB, John said thank you, and he was just asking, so will that keep the triangle slightly disconnected then?
Yes, definitely. The whole upper section here will be disconnected from the rest. This is what we're going shorter internally here to remove the weight, and the top's going to be a lot softer. Now, you know what we do at Mazzellan Palmer is before we start working with this connection, before we start working, you know, with more creative work, it's imperative that we understand our foundation. So, you know, without a solid foundation, it's very difficult to work with the actual creative technique. I mean, we're very lucky tonight. I'm just going to come back very soon, but we've got Greta. And Greta is in charge of global education for MMP. And when she's back in the room, I will ask her to tell you a little bit more about how we run education at Mazzellan Palmer. But what's very, very important is that we are doing in 3 steps. Step 1 is a lecture, which you give an in-depth information. Step 2 is demonstration, where we give you this information in a model situation or in a doll's head. And then finally, step 3, we get to do a workshop together. And it's during the workshop that you actually get to practice yourself alongside our team, you know, all those techniques. So now, from here, how do I create balance from the other side? So it's very, very important to see what am I doing with my body position. So as I work towards the left-hand side, I was placed behind my model, and I cut from shorter to longer. Now, how can I do the other side? Well, if I do this side from outside to inside, it might be a little bit difficult. So this is when I need to change my body position, and I'm going to place myself on the front of my model. Now, I'm going to bring the hair up the same way, you see here. This is where you have to use a good deodorant, without being too So I'm bringing the hair all up. And now how do I create the balance? Well, very simply, I can check here, where is the length on the other side? And from here, I'm going to cut. So you see here, I'm just about right. So I can go back, grab the hair this way, check here. You know, when you cut hair without mirror, it's not as easy. But, you know, when you do a demonstration here, this is why I'm using my finger here, it's much easier in terms of finding my balance. You know, balance is the most difficult things to do on a haircut.
JB, we had another question from Jacob. Will this shape be flat wrap dried?
Hi Jacob, yes, the shape would be flat. Any layered shape, before we had movement into it, it's a reduction of weight. So it will create a lot flatter feeling in hair. Here she's back. Greta, come near me, my darling. I wanted you to tell, when I'm just finishing this side, explaining the guys a little bit about our foundation course, the type of lectures that we are doing, how we're doing, how the 3 days is running, basically.
Oh, well, of course. With pleasure. So, well, we do normally 3 days foundation. And, well, the first day we start with a lecture about, the visual understanding of the shape. Basically, it's just about how to understand visually, just simply visually. We're not talking about techniques the first day in the lecture. And then we work with the demonstrations and live, let's say, demonstration workshops as well. So in which basically what we do, we work with the students, we work together with them, we show them one part of the technique and then they go and repeat, which is really good because in that way they can really understand the technique deeply. Then the second day, what we do, we start with a lecture again, and the second day it's all about how to create techniques and shapes. So we actually start in the second day to talk about how to create them, like physically. And then again we have another demonstration and demo workshop. The third day again is we have another lecture, and that's this time about how to place an outline against the bone structure to make it suitable for the individual, which is possibly the best of the 3 lectures, because obviously at the end you understand exactly what to do with your clients. And and then again we have a demo and workshop. So it's very good because all the lectures are very academic kind of lectures, and we give a lot of information. What we do at Mazzella & Palmer, we try and give as much as we can. We are not afraid of staying late as well.
We do. This is a bed, by the way, when you finish the course about 12 in the evening.
We really want to give you, we want to give the students as much as we can. So yeah.
Hey, Greta, you came back just yesterday, really, from Vietnam.
Yes.
I mean, you know, Vietnam obviously being an Asian country with very different hair that there is in Europe or in the US. Do we teach different?
No, it's all
in
the
different
same.
countries, or it's the same?
It's all the same.
So our education system can relate to any type of hair, really, isn't
Anything,
it?
really, yes. Of course. Then obviously in Asia you have different head shapes and different face shapes. Normally you have squarer head shapes and rounder face shapes. So you always tend to work with something that's more suitable for the clients there. But obviously it's the same, exactly the same. Hair is hair everywhere in the world.
I mean, you were the last person of Mazzella & Palmer to go and teach in America. You went to Dallas recently.
Well, it was last year.
Last year, yeah. But Dove's going next week or in a few days, I think.
Yeah, Dove is going back.
How was your experience in America,
Oh,
in
I
Dallas?
loved it.
You loved it?
Of course.
Perfect.
I loved it.
So guys, now I'm going towards the back. So I will draw my technique a little bit later on the head sheet as well, but for the moment, you know, everything is the same. I try to work with the neatest section as possible. You know, for that, to take my section, I'm very lucky. I've got an amazing comb here. This is the Mazzella & Palmer comb. So what we do with our comb basically is that we have a slight indentation here on the large tooth. So that's help us to create very nice and neat section. A wide side and a fine side. Depending on the amount of hair that we utilize, we really need to be able to have a different tension, right? So this is why sectioning with the wide side of the comb and then creating section here, the rest of my section here, and the tension with the fine side.
JB, I've got a question there for you.
Yes, please.
From Heather. How did you develop your education program?
So this is something that came through years and years of education. When we started Mazzella & Palmer, which was in 2011, quite a few years back now, the idea was not just how to cut hair, but why. So everything had to relate to something that had to be much more simplified. Still working with precision cutting. We did not reinvent the wheel, but what we did is we create something which is much more accessible and a lot easier to understand. And this is exactly what Greta earlier on explained to you in terms of the education system and the lectures. They are really made for you to be able to understand it much more easily. I mean, what's been happening for many years in education is we've been taught technique. So we've been explained, you know, come and learn the new trend, come and learn those latest technique, come and learn this. This is called a chair. This is had to be done this way. It has this kind of elevation. It has this kind of section. And then what happens a lot is when we learn a technique by heart, if we go back to our own countries and we deal with different hair texture, hair type, face shape, etc., it's very difficult to apply it to the individual. So what we wanted to do to change the education system, it's to make it universal. So what we're doing at Mazzella & Palmer is we empower you with the necessary information. So instead of copying any other haircut that you see, whether on a magazine or whether in a trend type of ways, you've got all the necessary knowledge to do your own, because the most important thing is there is only one trend. Is it going to look good or not on that individual? This is it. This is very important to us. So I know we've been a bit of a nightmare in terms of talking to a lot of magazines and then a lot of publishers, because when they ask us always the same question at the end of an interview, so MMP, what are the latest trends? Oh, we have to say the same thing all over again, isn't it? But for us, this is very important. We believe in that trend only, and that trend is suitability.
Another question for you, JB.
Come closer, just in case people hear you as well, Anthony.
Sorry?
Come a bit closer so they can hear on the phone. What's the question?
So, this is from Katrin. The sides have a square or round shape?
Ooh, this is a very good question. Well, if you look at shape in general, what is a square? A square is something that is created with a corner, right? So here, for instance, what I'm doing is I'm bringing the hair up. So I'm creating a flat area towards the top, not necessarily a square. If I'm actually pulling the hair this way and cutting the hair here, I would be creating a square. But here I'm not doing that. What I'm doing is I'm creating a flat surfaces towards the top, shorter internally, and then going longer internally. But I'm moving the hair around. This is why it's creating a flatter feeling. It's a round section because I follow the head shape towards the top, but then after I'm leaving the length falling down. So it's not a square section, it's not a square technique. If that makes sense.
And what would that do to the corners?
But there's actually no corner here for the moment. You know, I would create a corner if I'd come towards the side. Here for the moment, there's not technically a corner made, okay? I'm just bringing the hair all up. The only thing that's going to be created, it's because of the length left quite long, it's going to be a little bit of weight here, but I'm not finished with the haircut. So far, the only thing that I'm doing is concentrating only on that weight removal. I will come a little bit later in terms of the length.
Earlier on, JB, we had a question actually from Jill, and he was asking just about this, if you are going to take any more weight from the bottom area near to the nape.
Yes, I will. So the idea here is I'm going to work with a very, very soft shape. So what I'm going to do is the first part, I'm taking care of the weight removal internally. Now, the second part, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check what I'm going to do externally. And then that will be after, at the end, potentially working with some type of visual technique, you know, whether it could be point cutting, whether it could be using thinning scissors, whether it could be using a razor. There is a lot of different visual technique that we can use. But so far, what I'm doing is I'm doing one step at a time. And my first step is utilizing the weight removal in the internal shape. You see, always taking sections that are fine enough. Fine enough, I mean, you can always see your guide. We'll check towards the other side here. That's going to help me to see if I've got, you know, my balance. So it's just this little piece to be snipped and then snipped. Now, let's go around very quickly around Lily's hair. You can see it's much shorter now internally, yeah. But we've left all the weight, you know, externally and the length towards the front. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to very, very quickly draw my section. So I have a square section towards the top. I'm going to use a different comb here to draw. I find it very, very difficult to draw the section if they're very, very large. Up. So it could be offset, could be straight. I'm going to explain as well why did I take the section and the deepness of my section as well. And then if you locate from the back here, it's slightly longer on one side. So the back is offset. It's not offset for a more asymmetrical purposes. It's just offset because a hairline, it's much more jumpy on one side than on the other side. So I just keep a little bit more length. Same here towards the side.
Can we ask you a quick question while you're doing this?
Please.
Would you do this on long hair as well?
Well, that's a very good question. Now, do you know what? There is always possibilities on everything. So this could be very, very good on long hair. You just have to be careful to keep the right amount of weight each time, you know, and length each time. Because the more you remove the weight internally, the more it can be wispy in the outline. So you just have to basically create the, you know, the right elevation for the purpose of what you want to create. So you're lifting the hair all the way up, so shorter internally and then longer externally. And in terms of my section, what we've done is we've just followed everything from the front to the back. And in here what we do is, if you actually create a little dot, that means I've cut the hair on its base. I did not use any over direction. I'm going to create exactly the same here on this side. So what we try to do as well when we draw our technique is the same, is to try to have the easiest drawing as possible. So it's very, very easy for us to kind of notify what we're doing. Yeah, so the sections are the same. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working towards the back, a different sectioning pattern. Now, straight away, I'm going to use the water. Now I started working the shape wet. I need to finish all my technicity and all my technical work wet. Now I know that a lot of you probably do dry haircut as well. I do a lot of dry haircut myself, but here, as it's precision cutting, the hair, when it's wet in the hair, when it's dry, as we know, is a very, very different tension. So here, to have the best tension controlled as possible, I need to use water on it.
JB, we had a question from Jasmine. Was the outline already pre-cut?
No. So Jasmine just joined us probably. What I've done here is I have not done anything in terms of working my outline. It's just as it was. What I want to create here is just creating a little bit of movement on Lynn's hair. So everything was pulled straight up, shorter to longer. Just going to get back to my orange comb.
And also we had a nice comment from Matthew's hair. He said, those Mizutani are melting that hair off beautifully.
Yes, do you know what? It's, you know, in France we say it's not the robe that makes the monk, but I gotta say, incredible.
I had a message just saying how good the music is from Heather in the salon. Just want to say thanks very much for that, Heather. You can actually follow our Mazzella and Parma Spotify account at Mazzella and Parma.
Yes.
We're constantly updating it, and we're always putting new playlists up. We actually done one for the guys in Saigon, which brings me on to my next point. We had a hello from Vietnam from May.
Oh, fabulous. Hello, May.
We've had a hello from Italia.
Fabulous.
From Serbia.
We're very, very lucky, as we very fortunate to travel across the world, isn't it? We meet so many amazing people everywhere. You know, it's really a privilege. And you know, I believe that we are one of the only trade in the world that you always need to be in constant evolution. And you are in constant evolution always by keeping yourself up to date, by doing education, by sharing. Very, very important. So now, what I'm going to create is the head of my model is going to go slightly forward. Why slightly forward? Because it's going to be very important for me to keep very still, right? If the head is straight, I might go slightly down, and my body being very awkwardly positioned, it's going to be very hard for me to be in control. So Lily's head slightly down, and what I'm going to do is, you can see here, I have not touched nothing on the outline. This is the outline that she already had. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift the hair. I'm going to see very quickly and locate super quickly where is the top section that is layered. I want to keep the shortness here, but I want to keep the length here. So realistically, what I want to create is just breaking that little angle. So I'm going to bring the hair up, and I'm not going to take too much off, because if I take too much off, what's going to happen is that it's going to be too much of disconnection with the front, with the underneath section and the top. So I'm bringing the hair all out. You see I drop what I like. So this is perfect. And then I cut. Now I cut only on my two first knuckle. Helps me a lot more to be in control of what I'm doing.
A lot of love from around the world here.
Fabulous.
Andrew Todd says hello.
Oh, my dear friend Andrew from South Africa. He's actually a Mizutani boy from down there, Andrew. We've been there with him quite a few years ago. Absolutely love it there. We've got actually some super nice photos in our Facebook and Instagram on Afro hair, you know, with Andrew. It's been amazing. So by bringing the hair back, I will leave hair length towards the front here. So what I'm doing is, my first section's in the center, section number 2 will be over directed. So now that I have the guide, and now that the guide is created, whether I started from here or whether I started from the top, it's the same, okay? So I'll have to start with where I feel the most comfortable with. So in here what I'm going to do is, I'm going to start with the top section. So I'm going to bring the hair, and I'm going to give you a little tip in terms of the utilization of your comb. So in here, my first section is in the center, okay? So what I want to do is, I want to over-direct the hair towards the center. So look at the comb. The comb direction is facing where it's going. If I bring the comb towards myself, which I usually do when I comb the hair this way, the section is going to come towards me as I'm doing that. So this is why it's very important. I move the comb on the other side. And as I bring the hair here, it's much easier for me to create an over direction. So the shape of Lily's, the head shape going slightly higher, so straight away I'm moving it down. I have to be careful to have every time the same. I can see exactly where my guide is, and again I'm cutting and retracting my blade. And I finish with the lower part. So something that's very, very difficult to do is not to cut when you don't have the length, right? Usually we tend to go and try to find it. No, here I'm keeping and I'm actually leaving with the same exact shape that I want to create. If the hair is too short, I leave it. Okay, one more time. I'm only over directing back to one section. So now as I'm moving towards section 3, I do not need section 2. You can see here the hair is really nicely resting on the side without the help of sectioning clips, so I don't use any sectioning clips. I have enough water on the hair. If it starts to get messy, if it's hard for me to control, a little bit more water and then it's fine. And again, grab the hair. As soon as I grabbed it, I place the comb towards the direction.
JB, can you explain quickly what the sort of difference almost between a vertical and horizontal section you create?
That's a very good question. So if you're looking at section altogether, this is what we actually teach on day 2 on our dynamics of cutting course. So the idea is that a section that is vertical will fall a lot flatter. A section that is horizontal, especially because the elbow position usually goes down, results in more weight when it falls. So in here what I'm creating, I want to create movement and lightness. So I'm utilizing section that is closer to vertical or vertical, okay? If I wanted to create more weight, I've just moved to a section that is closer or horizontal. Who did ask the question?
It was sort of what I got from Pooja. She was asking about sort of vertical layers and what they create on long hair, but really, I mean, it is that difference between vertical and horizontal sections, isn't it? Because
Totally.
depending on where you lift the hair, it will make it lighter or heavier.
Totally. I mean, you know, I started cutting hair in France. My have to create it specifically for the individual. This is very, very, very important. You know, so the understanding of styling hair is very important, but you know, the understanding of cutting as well. So this is why I used to cut hair, everything into a visual understanding, like almost to reproduce something, you know, and then, you know, visual reproduction doesn't necessarily mean a suitable look for your client. Now, Thomas, if you come just behind me here, just 1 second. I just want to show you why using this over direction. So if I bring the hair now towards myself, you know, you can see here that we are going towards a shape that it's flatter, okay? And this is because each section, you stay there, stay there, stay there. Each section is slightly broad back. And by doing that way, I'm going against the head shape and I'm creating a little bit more length towards the front. So this is very, very important in terms of over direction. Now that I'm getting almost in the ear, I'm going to bring everything back. So it's probably not going to be much to cut, but I'm only cutting what is reaching my length. I think this is probably the last section here, as the hair was not too long on the front. Yeah, you see, nothing. Oh, okay, so we're going to do exactly the same on the other side. Now you see here how the hair is slightly moving. That means the hair is too dry. So straight away I take my water bottle and I'm just redamping the hair down. Now, a lot of people ask me about the utilization of products when we work in a salon. Now, if I'm in a salon situation and I've got obviously a lot less time to cut hair, as I'm not doing a video or a demonstration, I would use a lot more of leave-in conditioner. I think it's very, very important when you're in a salon that you use always the right product at the right time. But in here, if I use too much leave-in conditioner, obviously I'm going to create a build-up of product here. So I would use product just when I'm about to blow dry. And again.
I've got a lovely message here actually. So Marilyn says, I live in a small town, my hairdresser is good. Seeing a stylist like this is on my bucket list. I love watching these videos. Thank you very much, Marilyn.
Oh, thank you, Marilyn.
The internet now, hasn't it? It's
Totally.
brought education to the world.
Do you know what? I didn't even think that non-hairdresser would watch videos like that as well. But I guess there's a lot of tutorials and everything around the world, isn't it now?
Especially with Hairbrain for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been following Hairbrain from the start. I want to say a big hello and a massive thank you to Randy. He's the first person that we met many years ago in Salon International in London. I've not met Gerald yet, but you know, thank you guys for giving us the opportunity. You guys are doing amazing work in the US and all across the world.
Another good question here actually. Which section would you actually begin the haircut on most of the time?
Ooh, this is interesting. In terms of the location?
Yeah, well I mean, is there a specific point of the head that you would start a haircut on?
Well, this is a very, very interesting question because when I used to work in France, I used to start my haircuts always in the same point. And the thing that I used to do was I would determine my perimeter, so I was creating my length, and then once the length is created, I would start my layering technique or my graduation or etc. but always starting from the back and moving towards the side. Now, what happened is hair works like a domino. So if hair works like domino, it means that it follows a specific area as it's been cut. So now here, I'm starting my haircut towards the back to leave more length towards the front. So it's in terms of direction. If I wanted to create more length towards the back, I would have started towards the front. So here really, I'm starting my haircut where I want the length to be pushed. Very, very briefly, one more time, just doing my cross-checking. I'm very, very happy here with my shape. So I only cut millimeters if it needs. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my blow dry. So I'm going to blow dry my underneath section first and then goes towards the top. The top is very, very quick to do. So the choice of my product is a little bit of Rich Repair, which is a very light leave-in conditioner. Very lucky here in our salon and academy in London, we collaborate with Goldwell, amazing brand. And I'm going to use a little bit of mousse as well, very lightly. That's going to give me a bit of help in terms of control with the hair.
Do you just sort of put products in randomly, or are you sort of thinking?
Do you know, I was just thinking that actually, because it's always the debate on are we working with the utilizing the mousse with a comb or utilizing the mousse with the fingers. For me, I like to feel where I put it. So this is why I'm using the fingers. Otherwise, you know, I've seen a lot of people working with the combs, absolutely fine. The most important thing is that the hair and the product on the hair is evenly distributed. This is very, very important.
But do you just put the products in randomly, or do you have an idea of which one you put in first?
Oh yes, well, basically what you would do is, it's very, very important to put the first product that has the most moisture. You know, because more the hair is moistured, after when I put the mousse, much easier it is to go through, okay? So, now, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to utilize, we've got some very beautiful brush here that's called vest brushes. So they are flat brush. What I'm going to do is, because I wanted to create a shape that is flatter, I'm going to actually blow dry, you know, in a much more flatter way. So I don't want to create any extra volume towards the root here. So this is where I'm starting my blow dry with a flatter brush. And I'm going to build the blow dry like if it was a wall. So I'm starting a wall by building every brick from the lower part to the higher part. As you've seen as well, I have not yet worked on any of my outlines. Anything that's here is going to be dealt with later when I finish the blow dry. I mean, Anthony, you are the manager of the Mazel & Farmer Salon in London. What's your take on blow dry here with clients? Do you utilize always the same blow dry? Do people want a very specific way of drying their hair, or how does it work?
It's the amazing thing is, it's actually very similar to the way that we do our education, JB. You know, depending on what the finish you're looking for, depends on what brush you use, or so sometimes clients, would like to have a big bouncy blow dry, so we use a round brush, we use volumizing products. And if we're doing a sort of flatter shape, a shorter shape, generally we'll use the best brush, only just to be able to sort of see the shape, because obviously you're not creating any volume at the roots. But honestly, it depends on what we're trying to get the finish to be, depending on each client, But a lot of the time, me personally now, I use the best brush a lot to be able to finish my haircut, just so I can see exactly how it's going to sit. But with curly hair, I'm always blow drying it curly. So again, it just depends on the client's hair, the texture. It's the beautiful thing with MP actually, is that we really do sort of encourage, depending on what finish you want to get and what shape you're going for, you can use any tools out there really to be able to create that.
Exactly. So now that I move the hair forward, I'm going to move the hair back. I can see here that the hair is slightly lifting, which is normal because it's much shorter. And I'm going to move towards the second part of my blow dry, which is what we call tension dry. So tension dry is I'm moving the hair forward and I'm just bringing the hair, and now I'm working towards the mid-length to the end. Mid-length to the end. You see, I am not using any nozzle here on my blow dry for the moment. Very simply, because I want to allow the hair to be a lot softer when it goes, and not something that is too strong. Now, I'm going to utilize later a different brush and the nozzle on the hair dryer to create more shine from the mid-length to the end.
500 people watching you, JB. Actually, it's 506 now.
Ooh, fabulous. Hi, 506.
508. We could do this all night. You know.
Now, you know, it's been a very long time that we wanted to do a live with Hairbrained. You know, it's been an absolute pleasure actually for us.
So you swap now to a round brush.
Yes. So now utilizing the round brush, I'm going to try not to use any irons here. I don't really want to go for a shape that's going to be too flat. I want to keep a little bit more body in terms of my blow dry. So I'm going to start just to do, you know, the second part of my blow dry just with the round brush. And you see here, it's giving me this very, very beautiful shine, you know, towards the shape. Very lucky we've had this amazing color that was just done with the guys earlier on, isn't it? Gianmarco, do you want to say what you've been using and how Lily's hair was just when she arrived in the salon a few hours ago?
Hello guys.
So Gianmarco is one of our amazing stylists here in our Mezzo & Palmer salon. Welcome, Gianmarco.
Hello guys, yeah. So basically, yeah, with the color, I mean, it was pretty natural. So she came in few hours ago and we decided together with the guys to go for like a nice copper color. So we didn't want it to make it like too rich, so we mixed it together with a bit of natural as well. And it was basically a coppery gold color, which is it's called together with a bit of age natural. So that's how it came out, and we are really happy with it. And you too.
It's amazing, it's really nice. Alright, now that I moved and blow dry the first part, I'm going to go straight to the second part of my blow dry. And I'm moving the same way, so I'm starting from the back and I'm going to move towards the front. Very, very important that I'm utilizing the same way to do both. So I've got, you know, more I do the same thing, more I get the same finish.
So when you are drying the hair, are you leaving the hairdryer in one place, or are you sort of working with the contours? The contour of the hair?
Ah, of the hair. Wow, I'll put it on the contours of the hair. Oh. Okay. Yes, I mean, you know, what I'm doing is, you see, what's very difficult at first is that the way I got taught originally to blow dry was to put a section in clips and then put a shape and blow dry. Now, the only problem when you do that is that you naturally create straight away a big movement in the root, so aka volume. So in here, not to put volume, this is why we blow dry that way, so the hair gets a lot flatter. And what's very important is that you need to move your hair dryer constantly, you know, slightly from side to side, so it doesn't actually burn the client's head. This is very, very important. You see here, I'm actually going around, so it's very important for me not, you know, to blow dry too much in one part, so the hair would become a little bit too static. Now I'm trying to be quick because, you know, now when we do a haircut, we usually do it in 2 or 3 hours, and I only have an hour and a half today, so I'm going to do as quick as I can, and I'm probably think like I'm about an hour already, but the longest part of the haircut is what I've done now. Now this part's very important, you see. Now that the actual roots are done, I'm going to work with the length and the end. So I'm going to push the hair forward, I grab the hair again, and then I'm going to bring the hair down. And this creates this really nice, lovely soft feeling. It's almost like grabbing the hair and pulling it out.
I noticed as well, you're swapping hands.
Yes. Well, I don't know if you've ever had this situation. I used to have that a lot in the past. I used to blow dry only with one hand, and I used to have the same problem. One side the hair would fall really well, and then one side it would flick the wrong way. It is basically because the hair is following the way that you handle your brush. So if you handle your brush always with the same hand, you will always have the same hair direction. So this is why it's very, very important. I'm moving the direction and I'm changing hand all the time, so I can get this very, very nice feeling to flow, you know, in the same way on either side. Now I'm moving again towards the large brush here. This is a YS Clark brush. This one is called Tiger. Very, very nice. It's actually changed slightly my way of doing my blow dry since I started working with them, because it can really give you this beautiful, very, very nice feeling in the hair. You know, I've made mistakes in the past to utilize too much straightening irons, and when you use the straightening irons when you don't need to, you just make the hair look a lot too flat, right? When in here, what you want is just to create this nice, beautiful, soft feeling without losing too much of the natural body in the hair.
Just wanted to say to Jeff, this hair is completely natural. We haven't relaxed it. We don't really use relaxing. We maybe use Kerasol as another one earlier on, but this is completely natural here, other than the colour, which was just a semi-permanent, as Gianmarco was sort of saying earlier, which was a 9 kg with an 8N.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I am not against working with chemical relaxer. The only problem is it's very, very difficult after to find a nice natural movement with the hair, because it's almost like the hair hangs, and it feels very, very strong the way it hangs down with gravity. So I think for me, you know, I always like to have a nice natural feel on the hair. So if we do have to relax hair, you know, we have to be very, very careful of the length, because the hair doesn't react the same way afterwards.
How do you like the Dyson hairdryer?
Do you know what? It's a very, very good hairdryer actually. In terms of doing education for us, it's very good, because obviously you see I can do a blow dry, I can speak and you can hear me, because a lot of the other hairdryer are very, very loud. Usually the more powerful they are, the louder they are, so in terms of education it's quite tough. But yeah, so I've utilized this one tonight specifically because I think to do a video is very good. But yeah, very good hairdryer. Now, I'm almost there, you know. There is a lot of work to be done here in the bottom part, because this is an area that I have not cut, that it is basically from a haircut originally, but I just want to create a little bit more softness. I mean, if you can see here at the back with my technique, this is from the older haircut, so one side is longer, one side is shorter. So I'm going to need to create some visual technique, just to be able to cheat and to create more balanced looking shape.
A lot of compliments about the colour, obviously the shape as well, but I really liking the colour.
Beautiful colour. So, let's get to the visual part of my technique. So now what I'm going to do to start with, first I'm going to go back to my shape. From where I started, I'm going to take a larger section. I'm going to bring the hair up. I'm going to use the fine side of the comb. And then what I'm going to do here is point into the hair, but I'm going to retract my blade. There's a different way of doing point cutting, but this time I'm retracting my blade. It's just to keep a softer, more natural result here. So you see, just when the hair is going to be a lot softer as it falls. You see, and straight away I'm looking of how the hair is going. I'm really happy of the shape here. When we point cut, we have to be careful about the amount of what we're doing. You know, most of the time when we point cut, we don't actually look at what we're doing. Hey, how you doing? And then, you know, what happened with that is that, you know, you're not actually doing the job that you're supposed to do. Everything that we do, we need to check where it goes. We need to let the hair flow. We need to see if we're happy with the shape, and then we move on to the next part. Very, very important.
Had a big hello from Scotland, which is obviously very important.
A big what?
A big hello from Scotland.
Hey, hi Scotland.
What?
Anthony, you Scottish yourself, weren't you? Or half?
Sure am. Both halves. Both halves.
Both halves.
Both halves. We're actually just wondering, I'm reading this in Spanish here. When's the next time you're going to be going to Mexico?
We don't know yet. We don't know. Usually we used to go to Mexico at least 2 or 3 times a year. We're just waiting confirmation. It should be quite soon. I mean, we've got something pretty big coming up in September on this side of the world. We are doing the final of the it's called Global Zoom. It's going to be in Toronto with Goldwell, and then we are doing a show on the Monday. We're very, very excited to do that. It's going to be absolutely amazing. We're doing a big show as well in Germany for Color Zoom as well. That's going to be where is that one going to be? In Frankfurt, which is very, very exciting. So a lot of events across the world. So it's very, very exciting for us to be able to travel that much and to meet so many amazing people. To finish? No, I can't do that in 15 minutes.
Good question. What do you think of Uganda?
Of? Uganda? Well, I've never been to Uganda. Never been. So, it's like, I think one of the area of the world that we still haven't been very much, it's the whole African continent. We had been in touch a lot to go to Ivory Coast, to go to Morocco. We're waiting confirmation. Also, I think this year we're going probably for the first time in Israel, so very, very excited to go towards new countries also, because every new country has new textured hair, which is very, very exciting to be able to change direction on hair with that, which is really good. Now I'm going to do exactly the same towards the back. Now we need to ask Courtney if I can be a little bit longer, because I need a little bit longer here. I can't do that in 15 minutes, it's just not possible. Guys, I'm sorry, I haven't done any salon work for a long time, so I can't really do a technical haircut like that in 45 minutes an hour. You see, now as I'm working towards this lower part here, which is the last haircut that she had, I need to blend shape here together, so I'm doing exactly the same in terms of my body position. Just removing the weight very nicely. I can see the shape. The way that it falls is nice and soft. Last one behind the ear, and do exactly the same on the other side. You see, this is not to destroy the shape that I've done on the underneath, but it's just really to be able to soften the shape out. I can see very clearly where is my cutting line and my cutting guide all the time. Because I'm keeping it, but I'm just making it slightly lighter. Now, just want to show you here how to deal with an outline that's very jumpy like that. Just going to grab my clippers. You see how it all jumps out? Take this way. I'm just going to remove what's jumping. So now when it falls, it's just a lot softer. I just remove what I don't like, and I'm just going to go with a little bit of pointing technique. You can see clearly that from the previous haircut it's a lot shorter on one side than the other side, but that's okay. I can work my outline later.
just wanted to interject a little. Catherine, you said, can you do this type of haircut in an hour? Well, if I can answer this just to sort of let JB continue. Obviously, because we're talking through section by section, if you imagine you were doing that with a client, it would take you a little bit longer. But if this was a salon technique, you can absolutely do this in an hour. It's just one of those things, by talking through each section and explaining what we're doing and why we're doing it, it does add that little bit more time to the technique. But it's definitely something that you can work in a salon. It is part of the sort of the salon contemporary sort of feeling of hair. So yes, it is something you can do, but because JB's just been talking through sort of section by section, it's just taking that little bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's the same thing. You cannot compare when you're doing education, drawing your technique, etc., etc., and then your salon time. And what you do is you just adjusted your salon time, you know, from what you do when you do education. In everything that we do, we learn slowly before being fast at anything that we're doing. So, you know, so it's normal that at first we just break down a little bit of the time to actually, with experience, gain speed. You see, I'm just keeping everything soft here. I like this kind of movement this way. So what I'm going to do now is to get towards those final two sections on the top. I'm going to clean really up a little bit. I'm not going to use any water here because otherwise I might damage the blow dry on the underneath. But I want to keep something quite long and soft again. So I'm going to take my section in the center. I'm going to lift the hair all up. If you can see here from the front, look at where the length is. I'm going to judge from that. So I'm going to keep that length here on the front area. And from there, I'm going to cut a flat surface. Now, I'm going to bring the hair towards the center from side to side to leave more length on the side area. So I'm using, again, some over direction. One thing that I'm going to do is to bring the chair down slightly. That makes it easier for me. I'm going to cut the front first, and then I'm going to cut the back later. I'm always working with the fine side of the comb for a lot of tension. And you see here I'm keeping all the length towards the front. And I'm grabbing all the hair with me because I'm bringing everything towards the center. So a lot of tension up, and I bring the hair towards the center here. You very, very easily see my guide. She's got amazing hair to cut, I gotta say. It's beautiful hair.
Quick question for you, that's right. How did you choose your length?
I just said to...
No, I think for the whole length.
Ah, well, the first length was chosen. It was from leaving the length that she's got already, and it's just to modernize the shape that she's got. So it was more to work internally than externally. So in that way, she still has a feeling of a bob shape or of a line with a lot of layers into it.
Thank you.
You see what I've done as well in terms of my body position? I'm exactly in the same area for both sides. So one side I was pushing towards the center, and one side I'm bringing it towards myself.
Nearly 800 viewers.
Fantastic. Thank you guys for logging in, tuning in.
Oh, sorry, no, it was, how did you choose the length
At the top, yeah. So the length at the top was chosen because I really wanted to keep that length here. That's very, very important. Now, same towards the back. So I'm moving here. I'm going to grab my first section in the center. Do you know, I do my best to be quick. I feel very... haven't done a haircut so quick in so long. Head goes straight. Bring the hair here. I can see exactly where my guide is, and you see I'm leaving the length towards the back. And now each section is over directed to the center. This is just to create a very nice, very soft type of salon technique. Nothing crazy, nothing OTT, just a nice, soft, beautiful shape on a nice young girl. And again now, bringing everything to the center. You can see my guide very neatly. All the way back. Now, I'm going to bring forward. You can see here, look how jumpy the hair was. That's why I decided to do that. So now, I'm going to bring the hair towards this way. I'm only going to use a little bit of water on that particular jumpiness bit because I need that for the blow dry. I need to locate where is the hair going. So from which gravitational point the hair is swirling. So see, from here it goes forward and then it moves. So I need to go and follow that. Very, very important.
Quick question, so what was the shape on the top now? Is it square or is it triangle?
But again, it's just a flat shape. So everything's been brought up and it's been over directed to the center. So I guess it's like a concave shape. So it's slightly longer towards both. So from now, exactly the same, because if you do want to have the same shine everywhere, it's very important to utilizing the same product. So I'm using the leave-in conditioner. And then I'm going to use a little bit of mousse. So from mid-length to the ends. I'm doing more of a speed-up version because usually I would re-wet everything down a lot, but then I don't want you guys to just see it blow dry. I want you to see a final result as well. I'm going to place the hair. And then from here, exactly the same. I'm not going to push in any kind of direction. Not too much on one side, not too much on the other side. Just want to go all forward. It's going to help me to choose after to go one way or the other way. But always blowing on top, so just moving the hair where it goes with a natural direction. It seems that the hair wants to be pushed more on one side. But I've worked with my middle parting because when I did a consultation with Lily earlier on, she mentioned to me that she used a lot of middle parting or center parting. So by utilizing the center when I'm cutting, the hair can be pushed both ways. So if you do wish to see any of our work in terms of, collections, in terms of education, please visit our social media. We've got Mazarin Palmer as obviously Instagram, Facebook, but also we've got an amazing brand new website that came out not long ago. And then for you, very good if you want to see all the retrospective of every single collection that we launched. So it's very, very exciting for us. And then starting from tomorrow, we're actually shooting our brand new collection that we will release during Global Zoom in September. It's the first collection that we are doing in collaboration with Goldwell, so we're very, very excited. We have 5 incredible models. This collection will be shot totally in London. We have worked a lot in the past in Russia in terms of finding models there and having lots of amazing studios and everything. It's been really, really good. But you know, after now a few years, we're coming back home to do our next collection. So we're very, very excited. I feel like I'm blow drying against the clock. Yeah, it is. So same thing, you know, now I'm really working a little bit more tension. At the end, I take my my round brush one more time, smooth down the tip of the hair. You know, she's got this kind of medium hair that I'm very scared if I use any strong serum on it. I'm just very scared that it's going to be a bit, that it could eventually be a bit, not greasy, but you know, a bit heavy. So I don't really want to have anything too strong on the hair here. So I'm just using the mousse and the leave-in conditioner.
Someone's asking if we could get the top section done, but just for time, could we get Greta to do it and then you explain?
Yes, definitely. So, draw the section, Greta. Everything was straight up and over directed to the center. This. We might use a bit of that later. Just going to put it on just in case.
Someone's asked why you're using that little travel blue route.
Why do you use the travel blue route? I've just come back from holiday actually. My first day back at work, so I still have my luggage on.
Is that one you stole from the hotel?
Yeah, exactly. No, I could say I don't know which hotel does this kind of hair dryer, but that's the kind of hotel that I cannot afford at the moment. Same. Straight up, yeah? Straight up. So now I'm just doing exactly the same, just smoothing down the cuticle.
Okay, on the base, and then everything brought to the middle. I'm gonna draw here as well. So.
This part is very important because if the hair is not smoothed down properly, it's very hard for me to use any form of point cutting technique or softening technique into the ends. So blow drying is as important as cutting. This is very, very, very important. I've always thought that precision cutting was just when the hair was wet, but no, you need to really look at the shape when it's dry, do a very good blow dry. When the blow dry is done, after go back to your shape, so it's quite of a longer process, but then after when it's done, the difference between precision cutting and any of the cutting really is that it grows out really, really well. So you might see your client not as often, but in here what happened, what would you say, Anthony? with the amount of time that a client would come to the salon in the UK? Maybe every 2 months?
It used to be when I first started, it was every 6 weeks, but that was partly because people, it was just more of a routine. Nowadays, with precision cutting, I'm noticing, with longer hair, even mid-length, probably 2 to 3 months.
So what you do is, instead of going to have your client coming more often, you have more clients that come less often, right? Usually.
Yes, exactly. But the way that you look at it is that if the hair looks good for longer and they tell, if they're telling their friends, if they're telling people in the street, I love your hair, I done it 3 months ago.
Yeah.
I think that is brilliant advertising,
Exactly. Now I'm going to use the glorious Kerasil product. This is just before I'm going to do a very, very light use of the irons here, just to flatten the shape a bit more. It's just because I don't have enough time, so I'm just doing that. I think this color is absolutely stunning, Very, very great job from John Marco and Thomas. So, just taking the irons, just using here, classic, get a flat shape, bring the hair, everything's been smoothed down, so it's just the end. So really here, very, very lightly, bringing the hair, and I'm just softening the front here. I'm doing almost a little bevel on the end, so it's not too straight. I think, when you're utilizing this type of thing, you don't want to have over straight hair. You see, it's a very, very big type of disconnection. The top is much longer than the underneath, but it's more like I would say an invisible disconnection, something very, very soft. So it's not like, doing a new collection or just working on a very, very strong look. This is just to create something very, very soft that is very, very salon friendly.
It looks beautiful, David.
Thank you very much.
The amazing thing is with the understanding of head shapes and technique is it almost looks almost a little bit like a graduation back.
Yeah,
But
that's just because of the lightness of the hair, isn't
exactly, and the disconnection. It's amazing what technique and understanding of technique can create.
I think for me also it's very, very important, it's that when I look at precision cutting, it's not just about rigidity of work, it's not just about trying to do the most perfect technical haircut, but it's something that has to be wearable on our client. At the end of the day, we are hairdressers, we're working on a clientele, and then it just has to look beautiful, and it had to be, suitable to the person. So, the way that when we do education and the way that I work in the salon, it's kind of very different. But I need to learn my technique really, really well. So this is why even before we do anything in terms of creative work, as I said earlier, it's very important to understand, and control all your fundamentals. So I think we are fully booked until, I think we maybe have a couple of space in December for our courses. But if you want to see what we have, please, go and check info@mazellenepalmer.com. Go and check our website. Ask for all the details, and then you'll get everything from our administration team very, very soon. Now, what I'm going to do is, from this point, I need to work with the same technique as I've done on the bottom. So I need to remove a little bit of weight. You see here, it's very, very strong in terms of my disconnection. So bring everything down, bring the hair, and here I'm going to get a little bit more into it. So see, I'm holding the hair lower. Still keep my length, and when it falls now, it's just going to cope a lot more into the head shape.
So just wanted to sort of say a little thing. The reason why it has taken that little bit longer, which has been 90 minutes, is simply because we've been demonstrating, sort of talking each point through, and also with precision cutting, and that's really what we're trying to show here, is that it does take a little bit longer, but that's part of education sometimes. It takes as long as it takes, and to get an amazing, beautiful finish, sometimes it takes that little bit longer. You know, you don't go to school just for a day, and also sometimes if you're cooking dinner, sometimes it might take you a couple of hours, but the result at the end is delicious. So similar with hair, it's taken that little bit longer, but I hope everybody out there that's enjoyed it has really taken something from it. Thank you very much, JB.
Thank you very much, guys. I mean, you know, I'm going to give a very quick recap. I'm almost done. It's almost the end here. The thing is, if I have to do one more, I think I do a silent one. I think it's very obvious that it's very hard for us to be able to talk and cut at the same time in a very short time. Almost done, just getting towards that side now.
Looks fantastic.
She's got beautiful hair, really nice hair.
Great colour, John.
Merci.
This is when, you know, the combo is very, very important. About, you know, sometimes you think what's the most important, is that the cut, is that the color. I think what's the most important is the balance between both, you know. And if we nailed that balance right, you know, it's you can create very, very beautiful, very soft feel. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to work with a little bit of product. I'll use some spray. We'll definitely carry on cutting when this video is finished, because there's a few bits and bobs that I want to carry on doing, but mainly the shape is there. Spray here, I'm using something a bit strong, so I want to have a bit of movement, but still some hold. She's got very, very beautiful, very soft hair. Alright guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just explain to you very briefly the technique, and I'm going to try to style it in a different way after. So if you want to come closer. So the idea here was to create a shape that is bi-level. So we wanted to keep all the length and the softness here in the outline and keep much longer shape towards the top. So what I've done is I've worked from shorter internally to longer externally. We worked on the base everywhere, all the way on one side, then I moved towards the other side. I did exactly the same. Then towards the top, I brought the shape all the way up. I took my guide from the length on the front, and I cut a flatter shape, same towards the back. Then I over-directed all the hair towards the center. So that just gives me a very nice, beautiful, soft look. I think she's looking really, really cute. That can be, you know, even styled behind the ear. But what we have at the end is a nice kind of soft disconnection that could be very, very easily done on an everyday salon look, and great to create a removal of weight. Listen guys, thank you very much. Please come and see us very soon. Thank you to Hairbrain, thank you Gerald, thank you Wendy, thank you all the team to have given us the opportunity to do it. Thank you very much for my model Lily, thank you for the guys for filming, and hopefully we see you very soon in our academy or somewhere across the world. Thank you guys, have a lovely evening, thanks.